Here, Fox News reports Minnesota government workers blame Tim Walz for massive fraud amid allegations against Somali community. It says more than 400 employees of the Minnesota Department of Human Services accused Governor Tim Walz of failing to act on widespread fraud warnings. And we're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my peepo. You know that it helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you these stories every day. Now, y'all, the heat on your boy, Tim Walz, you know, the almost vice president of the United States. It's just getting worse and worse for him, y'all. It's getting worse and worse as people continue to wake up to the fact that in the great state of Minnesota, his administration allowed the pilfering, is that a word, y'all? The pilfering of over $1 billion, maybe $2 billion, maybe $3 billion worth of fraud of all kinds of social services in the state of Minnesota. And that now there are allegations that a good portion of that money, too much of it, went to Somalia and fell into the hands of the Al-Shabaab terrorist organization. Now, Donald Trump and Tim Walz are in a bit of a war of words over this, with Donald Trump calling Tim Walz something that most of us can't even say without getting in trouble. But, you know, Trump does what he wants. And also, it looks like 400 of Tim Walz's own employees are coming out and speaking out against him and saying, hey, man, this is your fault. We told you about this and you didn't do enough. So this billion, 2 billion, or however many billions that were stolen and the hundreds of millions that went to Somalia and some of that fell into the hands of the terrorists, it's on you, Tim. So, y'all, we're going to take a look at all this today. This is a follow-up to yesterday's video. Things just keep getting worse and worse for Walz. We're going to take a look at it, y'all. So let's go ahead and jump into it. But before we do, y'all, we are launching our official Patreon. So if you want to be a founding member on our Patreon, we have just 222 slots, y'all. If you want to be a founding member, go down, click the very first link in the description, and you're going to feel good about this, y'all, because believe it or not, we are an actual paralegal school, and we help people get their paralegal certificate and get working in the paralegal field. And all of the proceeds from our Patreon, when you enroll as a founding member, all of that is going to go to scholarships for people who would like to study at our institute, y'all. So click that first link down in the description. Join us as a founding member, y'all. This deal will not come back. Now let's get into the story.
House Republicans want an explanation after a report alleges Minnesota public funds are being diverted to a terror group linked to Al-Qaeda. Justice Department says it will take a look. National correspondent Jeff Paul has details.
They're calling for an investigation. 4 Minnesota Congress members addressing the state's U.S. attorney, demanding answers after a report claimed taxpayer dollars were ending up in the hands of Somali terror group Al-Shabaab.
If you're paying taxes for services you expect and things you expect your state government to provide, those taxes should not be going to a terrorist group in a foreign country.
House Majority Whip Tom Emmer is referencing this article written by urban policy magazine City Journal, which is published by a conservative think tank, the Manhattan Institute. Citing unnamed sources, the report alleges funding that was supposed to go to state programs to help with housing and feeding people was being stolen. Without specifying an amount, the article claims some of that money was then sent to Somalia through a complex network where it eventually ends up aiding the Al-Qaeda-linked terror group.
This is a huge black eye to the nonprofit community. There was lack of oversight. There's criminal intent.
Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar spoke at the state's capitol yesterday with other state leaders. She didn't directly mention the allegations of the report, but responded to Trump's announcement last week that he was terminating temporary protected status for Somalis in the state. Trump writing that Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of Minnesota.
Here, Fox News reports Minnesota government workers blame Tim Walz for massive fraud amid allegations against Somali community. It says more than 400 employees of the Minnesota Department of Human Services accused Governor Tim Walz of failing to act on widespread fraud warnings and retaliating against whistleblowers. The Minnesota Department of Human Service employees account, which says it consists of more than 480 current staff members at the Minnesota DHS, wrote on X that Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. Quote, "We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports," end quote. Here's another quote. "In addition to retaliating against whistleblowers, Tim Walz disempowered the Office of the Legislative Auditor, allowing agencies to disregard their audit findings and guidance," end quote.
On top of that, in that same post you mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find an offensive word, retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
You don't think that?
You have a problem with it? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into his state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country. It's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
He also described you using a slur widely regarded as derogatory toward people with intellectual disabilities. I want to read for you what he said, Governor, and get your reaction on the other side. He said, "Hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope they'll be left alone. The seriously blank governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing either through fear, incompetence, or both." What is your response to President Trump, Governor?
Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know, as both as an educator for a couple decades and as a parent, using that term is just so damaging. It's hurtful. We have fought 3 decades to get this out of our schools. Kids know better than to use it. But look, this is what Donald Trump has done. He's normalized this type of hateful behavior and this type of language. And mainly, look, at first, I think it's just because he's not a good human being. But secondly, to distract from his incompetency. We know we just came through a Thanksgiving where prices are up. We know people are concerned about heating their homes as we're experiencing blizzards out here at the same time he's cutting those programs. So, look, we cannot allow this to be normalized. The people who, Trump is, like this is language police, you guys are woke. Many times it's just about being decent to people and making them feel included. You can use that word, sure, you can use that language, but you shouldn't.
So things are really, y'all have to understand, Tim Walz, he is running for governor again. I mean, he was almost vice president, right? But he lost that. He and Kamala Harris, they lost that race. So now he's re-entering the race to be governor of Minnesota again. And this is bad for your boy, y'all. This is terrible. I mean, this is basically telling Minnesotans, hey, send us your tax money. We're going to just give it to these people over here, right? Because they know how to defraud. They know how to scam really well. And then we'll let them send it all the way over there across the world and fall into the hands of people who are terrorists. I mean, things couldn't be worse. I mean, this is a terrible story for your boy, Walz.
Well, speaking of the Somali community, President Trump is targeting them and your state in part. He's citing fraud as the reason for his crackdown. Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy. And as you heard Senator Kelly say, this president has cut a lot of inspector generals. He's cut programs that could help us tackle this on. So we'll take it on. We'll put folks in jail. I don't care what your nationality is. I don't care what your religion is, your color. If you're committing crimes, these are programs that were meant to serve students with autism, to housing, and to making sure people had enough to eat. There's a reason Minnesota ranks as the top. Lowest childhood poverty, best place for children to live. People are taking advantage of that, they're going to prison. That is totally disconnected with demonizing an entire group of people who came here fleeing civil war and created a vibrant community that makes Minnesota and this country better.
Now, what's so interesting is that, well, first of all, just take a look on your screen. Take a look at this list of names, okay? You have Amy Marie Bach, you have Abdi Kerm, you have Salim, you have a bunch of these names I can't pronounce, okay? So take a look at all these names, and then you say, well, hey, don't demonize a whole community for a few bad apples. And I totally agree with that. I think everybody listening to me right now should agree with that. The problem is you have 70 some names that are from, I believe, Somalia, and it kind of undercuts the one bad apple or two bad apple. You know what I mean? But I obviously, most Somali people in the United States were not involved in this fraud. And it is not fair to demonize the whole group based on these individuals. But I thought that this comment was really funny. Walt Ward says, oh man, not Abji Mahid Muhammad Nur. Oh my gosh. So yeah, y'all, Tim Walz, he's in a whole bunch of trouble. He's trying to become first he was trying to be the vice president. Now he's trying to be the governor of Minnesota, I think for the third term. I feel like this could do some damage. I really do. I feel like this could do some damage, and we're going to see what happens. Let me know. What do you think is going to happen, y'all? Drop a comment down below, but before you do, please stop, hit the share button, share this video out over email, text message, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all your favorite social mediums. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. Want to thank y'all for watching. Love y'all. We'll see you back in the next one.
On immigration, your administration made a lot of moves throughout the last few days after we know that Afghan national is the suspected shooter of these National Guardsmen.
People that shouldn't be in our country, that's right.
So you announced that asylum.
And that includes Somalians and includes plenty of others.
How long does your administration plan to pause asylum into the U.S.?
I think a long time.
Can you give any
We
kind
don't
of
want
time?
them. We don't want those people. We have enough problems. We don't want those people.
Is that a year, 2 years?
No time limit.
And then
but it could be a long time.
You said that.
We don't want those people. Do you understand that?
I understand.
You understand it?
I understand.
Who are you with?
I'm with News Nation. So
Okay,
my
News
name's
Nation.
Lindsay.
News Nation. Great. Let me just tell you something. We don't want those people. Does that make sense? You know why we don't want them? Because many have been no good, and they shouldn't be in our country.
What do you mean by those people? Can you
The
clarify?
people from different countries that are not friendly to us, and countries that are out of control themselves. Countries like Somalia that have virtually no government, no military, no police. All they do is go around killing each other. Then they come into our country and tell us how to run our country. We don't want them.
How many countries roughly?
You got to talk up.
She said how many countries?
Is there a list of?
Well, I guess we gave you 19, right? And there's probably more than that.
Is that what you mean when you mean third world countries, those 19?
No, I don't think they're all third world, but in many cases they are third world. They're not good countries. They're very crime-ridden countries. They're countries that don't do a good job. They're countries that don't register from the standpoint of success. And we, frankly, don't need their people coming into our country telling us what to do.
When you talk about
And I'm talking about like Somalia, where you have a congressman goes around telling everybody about our Constitution, and yet she supposedly came into our country by marrying her brother. Well, if that's true, she shouldn't be a congressman, and we should throw her the hell out of our country.
Mr. President, you said that you might denaturalize some American citizens. Can you talk about?
You mean people that are in here that shouldn't be here?
Well, that became Americans? Are you trying
Well, we'll
to
see.
revoke their
I mean, yeah, we
citizenship?
have criminals that came into our country and they were naturalized maybe through a Biden or somebody that didn't know what they were doing. If I have the power to do it, I'm not sure that I do, but if I do, I would denaturalize absolutely.
What do you mean by
Dan, do you have a question? Yeah.
What do you mean by reverse migration?
It means get people out that are in our country. Biden as the worst president in the history of our country. But the single biggest thing he did was allow millions of people into our country that shouldn't be here. Drug dealers, prisons were opened up and allowed to come into our country. You take a look at the people that were allowed to come into our country. We're paying a big price for it, and we will for years to come, including the recent killer of two wonderful National Guards people. And I'll tell you what, that animal should not have been allowed to come into our country. Thank you very much, everybody.
Have you
Thank
spoken
you.